You're listening to Strange by Nature, your guide to the strange, weird, unbelievable, and improbable wonders of the natural world.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for being here today. I am Kirk Mona, and I am joined today by Rachel Ginza and Victoria Thompson. We are all professional naturalists who together have scoured the world for weird and wonderful wonders just to please your mammalian brain's desire for novelty. Isn't that nice? Let's do this.
Welcome, everyone. You know, once in a while, a photo comes across my desk, and I just know that it is an animal we're going to have to talk about on the show.
Of course.
So now, you at home listening, I can't see the exact photo I'm about to show my co-hosts, but I want you to either check out our social media or do an image search for the Lowland Streaked Tenrec. That's Tenrec. And so now that I've said that, I want my talented co-hosts, can you please do your best to describe what you see in this picture for the listeners?
What?
It is a shrew crossed with a porcupine, crossed with a bee.
That's really actually very accurate. I was going to say that maybe it looks a lot like I'm going to stick with the shrew or a vole with a really long snout, like really big mouse ears. And then it looks like it got that dandelions got attached to it. And it's just spiky.
But it's black and white, black and yellow, like a bee.
It is. That's why I said dandelion.
Yeah.
But yeah.
This is a Lowland Streaked Tenrec. So
what?
Yeah, I like the bee thing. I hadn't really thought about that. It's we should have, for people who aren't looking at it, who are in the car or something, that's purely in reference to its coloration. It's a yellow and black mammal.
It doesn't have wings.
Does not have wings. No, that'd be so cool. But it does have quills and spines on it. It has fur. I think it looks like a Pokemon. There's sort of a Pikachu type aspect to it.
Electra is it called? I don't remember. It's
it would definitely be an electric Pokemon.
Yeah.
I saw this and I'm like, this is such a cool looking animal.
It looks so cool.
But I really hope there's something interesting about it besides what it looks like, because that's the one thing our listeners can't see if they're looking at the podcast.
Yeah,
it's not a visual podcast, so there is more to it. So I know there isn't any scale in the photo I show you guys, but so you can tell
it looks real small.
It looks like
they're only about 5.5 inches long.
That is so tiny.
Pretty small, not teeny tiny. Like it's bigger than a shrew. That you both referenced.
The
shrew.
size of a phone. Thereabouts.
Yeah. I mean, it would fit in the palm of your hands, which just makes it so cute. So it sounds like they can get a little bit larger, maybe 8 inches, but like 5.5 is referred to as the average of these cute little things. So Tenrecs in general are fascinating. First off, the Lowland Streaked Tenrec is a small mammal that is endemic to a place that we've mentioned a few times on the show. They're from Madagascar.
Oh, cool.
So they fill in some niches that a lot of other animals in other places do that don't exist. Well, no, the niches exist. Like there's animals that don't exist on Madagascar or have not historically. And so when Tenrecs showed up there, they ended up filling a bunch of niches that are filled by other animals in other places. That makes sense?
Yeah.
And through convergent evolution, which is where like the same pressures tend to create the same outcomes, Tenrecs, which are many different species of Tenrecs, have grown to resemble a bunch of other species we know. So they can look like mice, they can look like hedgehogs, they can look like opossums. It's really quite impressive how different and in different size and different colors and different shapes they can be. They can be found in trees. So some of them are considered arboreal. They spend their whole lives in trees. Other of them spend their whole lives in the ground. Some of them are even aquatic and spend their life in the water. So it's really wild how much they've diversified.
Wow.
Now they've had a lot of time to do it though. They've been hanging out in Madagascar, evolving into different forms for a really long time. Their closest relatives are the African shrews. So you guys both nailed it by saying they look like shrews. They are related to shrews, not shoes, shrews. But it's believed that they split off from an evolutionary standpoint from the shrews somewhere around 47 to 53 million years ago.
Oh, wow.
And
That's
they've
a
probably
distant relative.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact number. I think they feel like they've been in Madagascar for over 20 million years. So they've definitely had a lot of time to fill in all those different niches and evolve into different species of Tenrecs. So I do want to focus in on the Lowland Streaked Tenrec. Like I said, the Tenrec has specialized into many forms, and the Lowland Streaked Tenrec most closely resembles a hedgehog. So it looks like a cute little hedgehog. It even has those the spines you guys pointed out, and I wanted to focus in on those. But one quick note first, and I think this makes them even cuter, is that they eat earthworms.
Aww.
And I know, okay, that's maybe not all that cute because earthworms are kind of gross, but
so cute though.
how they catch them is extremely cute. So worms will come up to the surface when there's like a thumping on the ground. Like you can buy little vibrating rods you can put in the ground to make worms come out when you want to go fishing. And if you read the book Dune or saw the movie, like they use the big thumpers to like call the giant sandworms out of the sand.
Yeah.
This is a real thing though. Like there's a number of animals that have figured this out in the animal world, and literally they will
woodcocks do that too?
Yeah, The woodcocks do like a little dance where they kind of like stomp on the ground, and these Tenrecs do the same thing. They will do a little like cute little foot stomping thing on the ground, and that makes the earthworms come up, and then they viciously eat them. But the little idea of these little guys like stomping their feet like this sounds so
they're doing a little
super
dance.
Adorable. Yeah. So okay, I just had to get that out of the way because I want to talk about the quills. So here in North America, we're familiar with quills in the form of porcupine quills. And Rachel, you're up in porcupine country now. Actually,
yeah, I am.
You have a captive porcupine where you work, right?
Right.
An education porcupine, is it still there?
We used to have one.
Oh, no longer there.
No
Okay.
longer. A lot of our ambassador animals like found new homes during
during COVID.
COVID. Yeah.
Well, last time I was up at the place where Rachel now works, there was a education ambassador porcupine, super
Named
cute.
Thistle.
Thistle, right? much larger than this little Tenrec though. But so like the quills are made out of keratin, very similar to a porcupine quill, and similar to porcupines and hedgehogs, the quills are certainly for defense. I mean, it is tough to eat an animal with quills, right? Some of them on the Tenrec are even detachable quills, like a porcupine that could, get stuck into an animal that tried to eat it.
Yeah.
That's not too strange or surprising. But what is really cool is that they use some of their quills for communication.
What?
Say more.
Right. I know. So they actually have two different kinds of quills. They have those long defensive quills, but they have some other ones that they use to produce sound. And I'm going to have to hearken all the way back to our very first episode here with the word stridulation. So the Tenrecs
I remember what that word means.
Yeah, well, it was if you haven't listened to episode 1, I'm not going to spoil it for you. What was
the title of the episode tells you a lot.
Kind of gives it away, yeah. But in this case, what they're doing is they're rubbing these special quills together, and it makes a noise. And so everyone listening to this has heard this in insects. Crickets are a great example of making that noise. There's also snakes will do stridulation to make noise. But the Tenrec is the only known mammal to use stridulation as a means of communicating. And they seem to communicate with their young, but also make a noise to warn predators. And I'm not totally sure how that second part works, since it's like ultrasound.
Yeah.
So it's very high frequency, and not all animals, especially humans, can hear that. So I'd be very curious what animals are predating on them, and is this like would that just tell them where they are so they'd want to eat them more, or somehow the sound scares animals off? I'm not totally clear on how that works.
Yeah.
But the research I was reading was suggesting that they use them both for communicating with each other and also for like scaring off predators. So that's pretty cool.
That is
The
cool.
researchers who were looking into this actually used bat detectors to hear the sounds, because those transducers will, bring that frequency down to something that humans can hear. And they're able to kind of point them at the Tenrecs and hear these sounds and be like, oh my gosh, we assumed they were like basically pretty quiet animals, but in fact, they're making noise all the time and communicating with each other, which is very, very cool.
That is so cool.
There is one interesting last little tidbit for everybody in this story. Because they live in dense jungles in dim lighting, and they use these high frequencies like bats, this has some researchers wondering, is it possible that maybe the Tenrecs are also using the sound for echolocation
That
to
would
help
be
them find their
interesting.
way through these
would be
dark
amazing.
forests? That would be super cool. I did not find any research that has actually tested that. It's just sort of like a hypothesis that's out there waiting to be tested, as far as I know. If I do find more research about this showing that someone's actually tested this out, I'd be very curious to see that, because they don't have like big bat ears,
No,
Yeah.
they don't.
for like, so
They do
I'm
seem to
not-
be like really like from the picture. They look really thin though, and like large-ish for their body.
yeah, so it's fascinating thought, and it'd be interesting for some people to do more research on that. But so it hasn't necessarily, I don't think, been proven at this time, but it is yet another interesting facet to this super cool Pokemon of an animal. So I just wanted to share it with you. If you're not on a computer right now, you're driving, get to where you're going, and then look up all the photos of these. There's a lot of different Tenrecs, but specifically the Lowland Streaked one is the one we're talking about today.
Yeah, it'll
my
be on our
sources-
social.
Exactly. And our sources this week were the BBC, who actually helped film Tenrecs using stridulation back in the 1960s, and Wikipedia.
Nice.
Well, we're going to go to a break, and when we come back, it'll be Rachel. And do you have something colorful for us?
I do.
Yay.
Excellent. I guess mine was kind of colorful this week, too. So we'll take a break, and we'll be back with Rachel. Strange by Nature podcast is brought to you by listeners like you who have joined the Society of Strange, our membership group on over at patreon.com/strangebynature. Society of Strange members can join at one of 3 different membership levels and help support the show, and also get some fun stuff like water bottle stickers or access to super secret content. So a thank you to those who have joined already to help make this podcast possible. If you haven't joined yet, we'll see you soon over at the Society of Strange at patreon.com/strangebynature. See you soon.
All right, everybody, welcome back. So in continuation with my colorful theme, question for you two. What
Yeah.
color
Yeah.
do you find at the end of a color wheel? Like where the purple, I say end, it's a wheel, but where
Like,
purple...
What at the end of a wheel?
Trick question.
I'm like, I'm back.
Okay,
It's a
where-
trick question.
where red and purple like connect, what color is that?
Where? Oh, if you were to go all the way back
Like
around.
what's in between
Red
red
and-
and purple is what you're asking?
Yeah. What is
Oh, you
No,
could
is
call
the
it like-
rainbow,
red and
they're at
purple?
opposite ends.
Kind of like a mulberry sort of color, burgundy.
I'm gonna call it a reddish purple.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that allowed? I like
I
mulberry.
feel like
though.
this
That's
is
good.
sort of
Mulberry's nice.
I feel like you're looking for a specific answer that we're not coming up with.
I know. I feel like we're failing you
Yeah.
here. What
So
are you looking for, Rachel?
Well, there's a lot of debate, but generally speaking, that color is called magenta.
Magenta, right. Okay, yeah. I've
Okay.
heard
Yeah.
of that one.
Yeah.
That's one of the
Yes.
one of the printer ink colors.
Exactly. It's
confirm,
very
yes.
often in printer inks.
A little
Um,
CMYK action. Yep.
But here's the thing. Magenta cannot actually exist on the visual spectrum.
What now?
Magenta doesn't exist.
I heard you.
Come
But
again.
I've seen it.
Uh-huh.
I've also seen it, Rachel.
Yeah.
Explain how it doesn't exist.
So technically, it is an artificial color. It is not found in nature. All right. But
Challenge
what's
accepted.
happening? Okay, it might be found in nature. So Kirk, you actually kind of started getting us into it, because what it is our eyes and our brains tricking ourselves and artificially creating this color.
Separate wavelengths coming together to create
Exactly
a color that, for instance,
doesn't
I guess
exist.
you could not create a magenta laser because there's no coherent wavelength that is magenta.
Okay.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
It's our brains trying to like solve this puzzle. So when it comes to waves of light, I believe we've talked a little bit about it before, but each color of light has its own wavelength. So reds tend to have a really slow, long wavelength. It takes a long time for reds to get anywhere. That's often why like sunsets and things like that tend to have a more reddish color to it because it's some of the last light that can reach us. On the other end of the spectrum, you have violet or purple, which are high and fast wavelengths. So you have red on one side of the spectrum with really long, slow wavelengths, and then you have purple on the other side of the spectrum that is high and fast wavelengths. Those wavelengths cannot technically like mesh together to create a new color. Human eyes are only really able to detect red, blue, and green light. And that's what our rods and our cones are able to decipher when it comes to color. So it's those three mixtures that comes up with all of the colors that we see, all of the variations.
Right.
But our eyes, what we see when we see a color that is between purple and red, there's no green light at all in it. Okay, so your brain is trying to fill in those gaps. And that gap ends up being magenta. But it technically speaking, it should turn it into green. But our brain says that makes no sense. And since our brain because you wouldn't expect blue and red to mesh and all of a sudden there's green, right?
Right.
So instead,
I don't understand why it should look like green though.
Because so it's averaging the colors and the wavelength in the middle of.
Oh, okay. So if you average the wavelength in the middle, of blue
it would be green.
Red.
Of violet and red, it would be green.
So basically,
that's a good thing.
The magenta's just like an artifact that your brain comes up with.
Yeah.
To deal with this dissonance.
Yes, because it makes no logical sense to us that it would be green. So it mixes the colors together to create magenta, a color that doesn't exist.
Right. Yeah. And if people are wondering, you're sort of thinking like, well, wait, but I have like a magenta shirt or I have a magenta paint.
Right.
Like, isn't that, it's like, well, no, it is reflecting both of those wavelengths at the same time and your brain is combining them into one color, which is kind of how all color, there are discrete wavelengths of like just single colors. That's really fascinating.
Yeah.
It's also hard to understand.
Wrap our brains. Yeah. Because technically speaking, like we want it to make sense. We want it to exist. It's like, why would it not? It doesn't make any sense. But technically speaking, it's a color that doesn't exist. So
there must be others too.
I'm sure there is. Magenta is the one that has come up a lot more for me, or from when I was looking for colors that didn't technically exist. But that tends to be it tends to just be magenta that comes up, just because it is that variation of violet and red.
Okay.
Well, there's something that can come up that I was familiar with. It's called an impossible color. Did you come up upon that when you're reading stuff? So I think with the magenta,
mention of it, yeah,
with magenta, like we can perceive that. There's some other colors because the way our, our eyes work, we can't see those colors because to oversimplify it, they cancel each other out.
Right.
There's a really cool thing you can do. Actually, if you go to Wikipedia and search for impossible colors, the easiest way to find these, there's two colors. There's a blue yellow and a red green.
Oh.
And you can't, there is no color that is blue plus green, or sorry, blue plus yellow, and there really isn't a color that's red plus green. I mean, you could mix those colors in paint, but you just get kind of like
a brown
mud. Yeah. But there's a really cool.
Well, blue and yellow makes green normally. Is it yellow and purple?
Oh, yeah.
Well, no. So there's a thing. It's really weird. Like, check this out. Go to the Wikipedia page, and there's a blue square and a yellow square with little plus symbols in the middle. And then what you do is you like, you know those magic eye posters where you like put your eyes up. So you need to get your eyes to cross so that only one eye is seeing the yellow and one eye is seeing the blue. Because if those colors both enter the same eye, you get a different color. And what happens is, if you do it correctly, your brain will, maybe for the first time in your life, see a color you've never seen before. And you look at it and you're like, well, it's yellow blue. Like we don't really have a yellow blue or a blue yellow.
Right.
We have greenish yellow or reddish blue. But we don't have so try it out. Little bonus thing that's kind of related to your topic and fits in with all the colors we're talking about.
Yeah. Cool. So that's what I have for you today. The color that doesn't exist.
Awesome. Thank you.
Very neat.
So we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, it'll be Victoria.
Hey, we're back. And I am going to talk about, well, this is a little bit of human body trivia that a lot of people have heard. The following question.
Okay.
What is the hardest substance in the human body? You guys know this one?
The hardest?
Yeah, hardest.
Hardest substance.
It's your teeth.
Yeah, tooth enamel. Exactly.
Oh, see, I was going to be a smart ass and say the iron in your blood, but
well, funny you should mention iron. We'll get to some iron things.
Okay.
But tooth enamel is made of a mineral called apatite, specifically hydroxyapatite, which, given that it's teeth, sort of seems very fitting.
That's awesome.
That's so fitting.
I love it.
Yeah, it's a form of calcium phosphate. And, there are actually not all that many minerals that are produced by biological processes. It's sort of an interesting intersection of biology and geology that bodies can produce minerals, but organisms are able to control the formation of mineral crystals in some very precise ways that can give them really unusual properties. And then also can combine them with organic compounds, like our bones are a mixture of also hydroxyapatite and, different types of connective tissue and stuff. But besides hydroxyapatite in teeth and bone, some of the most common structural minerals that you might have heard of in the animal kingdom include calcium carbonate, which is used in things like oyster shells and coral.
It's a big one. Yeah.
And silicates, which are used by actually not animals, but small sea creatures like diatoms.
Yeah.
And then there's some minerals, biominerals that are not as well known or common. Magnetite.
Do tell.
Yeah, magnetite is actually one that we have mentioned a bit in the context of bird migration. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's believed to likely play a role in wayfinding among many different species. And in fact, there's magnetite in the human brain, although how much of that is due to pollution and how much of it is due to our brain chemistry is a bit of an open question at the moment. A little disturbing. I didn't go too far down that rabbit hole.
Probably a good plan.
Yeah. But magnetite is significantly harder than tooth enamel, up to 3 times harder, actually. And it's an iron-containing mineral. So today I want to talk about an animal that uses magnetite for, not necessarily for wayfinding, although perhaps it does. But I'm going to talk about chitons. Do you guys remember or know what a chiton is? Does this ring a bell? They're pretty obscure for most people.
Very tiny microscopic bell.
Not microscopic.
I can barely.
Nope.
No, I mean,
okay.
the bell is microscopic. It's very, very quiet.
I think my brain is conflating it with chitons. Which is not the same thing.
Right? No, not like chitin, the not mineral, but like structural material. Yeah.
Yeah.
Chiton. This is spelled Chiton. They are marine mollusks. So they're related to snails, oysters, octopuses, although they have their own class within the mollusks. So, they're not super closely related to any of those creatures that I just named. And they have a generally oval shape and 8 overlapping shells on their back that provide protection. And then their underside is a foot, kind of like a snail's foot that they creep along on. And they crawl around on rocks and hard surfaces in the ocean, and they live by scraping algae off of rocks with a special kind of a sort of a barbed tongue. It's called a radula, and it's covered with lots of little tiny teeth. So
horrifying.
Yeah.
What are those teeth made out of?
Well, it looks a bit like a zipper. Actually, it's not that horrifying. The radula.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
It's long and narrow.
In my brain, I for some reason was picturing like a human tongue with a bunch of little barbs that was just like super sharp.
No, it's just this sort of long, narrow strip with a bunch of little nubs on it.
That's why I was like,
horrifying.
Oh, exactly. That's why I was like, oh no.
But, if you think about crawling around over rocks all day and scraping algae off with your tongue, that is going to be pretty hard on your tongue. Even your teeth would wear down quite quickly. But each little tooth, each little rasp on the radula of the chiton is coated with magnetite, biomagnetite. And it just happily scrapes all the time. They do eventually wear down, but they're replaced continually. And this biomagnetite is the hardest known biomineral. And it's unusual. I don't know if it's unusual, but the chiton actually forms it in a way that is significantly stronger than the magnetite that is found in rocks, just because it can very precisely lay down the crystalline structure of the mineral.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
I suppose that shouldn't be that surprising. Our teeth are laid down in very specific ways.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I decided to talk about this subject today is not just that it is amazing that chitons use magnetite in their teeth, but there was a relatively recent discovery with some more information about chiton teeth. And this involves specifically the giant Pacific chiton, which is Cryptochiton stellare, which is the largest chiton in the world, and it is nicknamed the Wandering Meatloaf, which should give you some clue as to its appearance.
And for those of you listening at home, you now understand where the episode title came from.
Good.
Done. Check that off my list. Episode title sorted. Okay.
Glad I took care of that for you.
Done.
Yeah. Well, these scientists, they were interested to see how this ultra-hard magnetite on the outside of each tooth connects to the underlying tissue, which is relatively soft. It's actually made of chitin, the biomaterial, like the insect shells and lobster shells and stuff is made of. So the chiton has chitin. It's got kind of a core on each tooth that is made of chitin, and the radula is also made of chitin. And each tooth is quite small. And this core is there, and it's a very small distance from the very hard outer part of the tooth to the inner part of the tooth that's a softer material. So it's only a few hundred micrometers, which is a couple human hairs, approximately.
Right.
Okay. Real small. Wow.
Yeah.
That's tiny.
And so the hardness just varies incredibly over this very short space. And that can lead to unique stresses on the material. So they were interested in kind of how the chiton bridges that gap, if you will. Not an actual gap, but that material difference. And so they were looking into this, and they did all kinds of sort of spectroscopy and analysis of the different parts of the tooth and the core of the tooth. And while doing this, they discovered another iron-containing mineral within the tooth, nanoparticles of a mineral that's called Santa Barbaraite, which is an...
Where was it found?
Yeah.
It's
Where
actually,
could that have possibly have been discovered?
Well, I thought it was from California too, but actually it's from like an Italian mine that is also called Santa Barbara.
Oh,
Yeah.
shoot. Okay. Wow.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an iron phosphate compound which has never been found before in any living creature. And in fact, the mineral itself was only discovered in the year 2000 and occurs in just a small handful of locations in the world, as far as we know.
Wow, cool.
And it's an amorphous mineral, which means it doesn't form regular crystals. So sort of like if you think of obsidian, like volcanic glass, that's another amorphous material. If you crack it, it just kind of doesn't have a cleavage plane. But the chiton has little nanoparticles of this iron phosphate mineral, Santa Barbaraite, that occur in specific locations in the tooth. And the scientists think that the special properties of this mineral and the very carefully graded way that it's laid down really help the chiton's radula, its tongue, have the sort of remarkable flexibility and abilities that it has. And it was kind of almost a 2-for-1 paper. They found this mineral in the tooth, and then they just decided to go ahead and 3D print some materials based on
Why not?
the materials that they had found in the tooth. And these printed materials were able to show similar mechanical properties to the chiton teeth in terms of their like flexibility and strength and stuff.
It sounds like someone could make a really awesome sandpaper.
Yeah. But this is actually kind of a persistent problem or I don't know if it's a persistent problem, but like a problem in robotics, where if you want to have a soft robot that can do hard things, it's hard to sort of connect those materials. So this is, potentially a really important development in that sense.
Cool.
Yeah. And the paper that talked about this, there were 2 papers really. One was called Persistent Polyamorphism in the Chiton Tooth, from a new biomineral to inks for additive manufacturing. That was in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences in June 2021. And there was an earlier paper from April 2010 in Materials Today that was called Analysis of an Ultra-Hard Magnetic Biomineral in Chiton Radular Teeth. That was about biomagnetite. Yeah, so...
That's awesome.
Wow. That one was not on my radar.
Neither was it. It wasn't on mine either.
Very
You started
cool.
talking about teeth, and I was fully prepared for you to start talking about like our enamel and everything, and you went a very different direction.
Yeah, a little misdirection there.
Very nice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thanks, Victoria.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
That's what we have this week. And
Awesome. Fun show. Thank you.
yeah,
Yeah. Thanks
Talk to
everyone
you
for
guys.
listening. We'll see you next week.
see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks everyone for listening to today's show. Be sure to subscribe. New episodes drop every Wednesday, and we love sharing this strange world with all of our listeners. If you would be so kind as to leave us a 5-star review, that would be great. It lets other lovers of the strange discover the show. You can reach out to us on social media by searching for Strange by Nature Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can send us an email as well. Our address is contact@strangebynaturepodcast.com. If you want more information about the show, you can also check out our website, which is strangebynaturepodcast.com. Until next week, get outside, stay curious, and embrace the strange.